Captain Nina Roberts stepped off the transport bus and onto the tarmac of Fort Willow. The sun shone brightly, casting long shadows across the orderly rows of buildings. Soldiers moved with precision, their boots tapping on the concrete in rhythmic cadence. The smell of fresh paint, motor oil, and the faint scent of the nearby forest filled the air. Nina took a deep breath, feeling the familiar mixture of excitement and responsibility that always came with returning to base. She adjusted her uniform, making sure every crease was straight and her medals reflected the sunlight. Years of service had taught her the importance of presentation, and despite the long mission overseas, she wanted to look sharp. Her black boots clicked on the tarmac as she walked toward the main gate, her posture tall and confident. Lieutenant Davis, a friend and colleague who had remained at the base during her deployment, waited near the entrance. His uniform was spotless, but his hands fidgeted slightly. He noticed Nina approaching and straightened immediately, offering a polite salute. "Welcome back, Captain," he said, his voice steady but carrying a hint of nervousness. Nina returned the salute with a smile. "It's good to be back, Lieutenant," she said. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt the adrenaline of returning to familiar surroundings. As they walked toward the main hall, Nina noticed groups of soldiers moving around, some in training exercises and others simply talking in small clusters. She was used to the controlled chaos of a military base, yet something felt different today. There was a tension in the air that she could not place. "Everything all right?" she asked, noticing Davis's uneasy expression. He hesitated. "It's nothing serious, Captain. Just people are talking. You know how rumors spread quickly here." Nina frowned slightly but nodded. She had experienced whispers before. A rumor could spread faster than a wildfire on a dry day, and most were harmless. Still, she felt a sense of curiosity. As they entered the main hall, the noise of boots and conversation filled the large space. Soldiers in various ranks moved with purpose, carrying reports or checking equipment. Nina's eyes scanned the room, observing the energy of the base. She noticed a group of younger soldiers near the entrance. They seemed hesitant, almost afraid to approach her. Their eyes flicked nervously between her and each other. "Lieutenant, what's going on with them?" Nina asked quietly. "They've heard stories about you," Davis said, keeping his voice low. "They mean no harm. They are just curious, I think." Curiosity was one thing, but the nervous energy from the group made Nina cautious. She continued toward the administration office, trying to focus on her duties. Yet she could feel their eyes following her every move. Once inside, she began checking reports from her recent mission. Supplies, personnel updates, and training schedules required her attention. Despite her focus, she couldn't ignore the occasional glance from the group outside the office window. She felt a mix of pride and unease. Pride because of her accomplishments, unease because she did not yet understand the nature of the attention. By mid-morning, one of the junior officers approached her desk with a hesitant expression. "Captain Roberts," he began, "there is a small group of soldiers who would like to speak with you. They asked if they could have a moment of your time." Nina looked up, raising an eyebrow. "What is this about?" "They said they want to see your uniform in a different way," the officer said slowly, as if weighing every word. Nina's brow furrowed. "Explain," she said firmly. She had faced many unexpected situations in her career, but this sounded unusual. The officer swallowed nervously. They asked if you could remove part of your uniform, just for a moment. They said they heard about something unusual about you." Nina's heart skipped a beat, but her voice remained calm. "I don't remove my uniform for anyone without a proper reason," she said. Her tone carried authority, and the officer nodded, understanding her position. She leaned back slightly in her chair, thinking. She had faced enemy soldiers in combat, storms at sea, and days without sleep in harsh environments. Yet this simple request from her own base unsettled her in a way she could not explain. It was not disrespect but curiosity that unnerved her. Davis, standing quietly nearby, stepped closer. "Captain, they mean no harm," he said softly. "It is probably just their way of trying to understand someone they see as exceptional." Nina nodded slowly, acknowledging his words. She had always been aware of the influence a veteran like her could have on younger soldiers. Respect was earned through action, but curiosity was a natural reaction when someone had accomplished so much. By lunchtime, whispers had spread further. Soldiers who had only seen her in training or through reports were now eager to catch a glimpse of what made her different. Nina noticed small groups watching her movements, their heads tilting in speculation. Some soldiers were clearly embarrassed by their curiosity, but couldn't resist the urge to observe. She decided to walk through the training grounds to keep herself busy. The sun was high in the sky, and the fresh air helped her relax. Soldiers paused their drills to salute her, and she returned each greeting with a nod and a smile. Despite the underlying tension, she maintained her composure. As she walked, a young recruit named Leo approached her cautiously. "Captain Roberts," he said, some of us have questions about your service. We didn't mean to cause any trouble, but we heard stories." Nina stopped and looked down at him kindly. "Stories can be misleading," she said. "Tell me, what is it that you want to know?" Leo hesitated, glancing at the others before speaking. We heard that you have something on your uniform that is unusual, something hidden. They wanted to see it for themselves, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do." Nina smiled gently. "Curiosity is natural, but respect is more important," she said. "I will not remove my uniform for anyone without a proper reason. That is part of what it means to serve with dignity." Leo nodded, relief washing over his face. "Yes, Captain. We understand." As she continued her walk, Nina reflected on the situation. It was strange how small moments could reveal so much about human behavior. These young soldiers had heard stories, formed opinions, and were now confronting their own curiosity. She remembered her own early days in service when she had looked up to the veterans around her and wondered about their experiences. Back at the main hall, Commander Mitchell entered the building. Known for his sharp eye and fair judgment, he immediately noticed the unusual tension in the room. Soldiers shifted nervously as he approached. His gaze fell on Nina, and he sensed the situation required attention. "Captain Roberts," he said in a calm, authoritative tone, "I hear there is some confusion regarding your presence here. Would you explain what is happening?" Nina recounted the events, her voice steady and composed. She explained how the younger soldiers had asked her to remove her uniform, and how she had declined out of respect and professionalism. The commander listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "I see," he said finally. "Curiosity is natural, especially among new recruits, but respect must always come first. I will address this matter personally." Nina nodded, appreciating his involvement. She had faced countless challenges in her career, but dealing with the delicate balance of curiosity and respect on a home base required a different kind of leadership. As the afternoon progressed, the story spread further. Soldiers whispered in corridors, some glancing toward Nina with newfound admiration. Others were filled with uncertainty, realizing they might have acted too boldly. Despite the attention, Nina remained focused on her duties, overseeing reports, coordinating training exercises, and mentoring junior officers. By the end of the day, the initial tension had shifted. Soldiers who had once been curious now approached her with respect and questions about her experiences. Nina answered patiently, sharing stories of her missions, the challenges she faced, and the lessons she had learned. Her words inspired those around her, creating an atmosphere of admiration and understanding. As night fell over Fort Willow, Nina stood at the balcony of her quarters, looking out over the base. The lights of the buildings glowed softly, and the sounds of soldiers completing their evening routines filled the air. She felt a sense of pride, not just in her accomplishments, but in the respect she had earned from those she served with. Lieutenant Davis joined her on the balcony. "They will remember today," he said. "You showed them what it means to be a true captain." Nina smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "It is not just about authority," she said. "It is about integrity, courage, and respect. That is what makes a leader." As the stars appeared one by one in the night sky, Nina knew that her journey at Fort Willow was only beginning. Challenges would come and curiosity would arise, but she was ready to face them with the same determination that had carried her through every mission before. Her presence at the base was no longer just about returning from service. It was about inspiring others, teaching them the values she held dear, and showing that true courage could be seen in every action, whether on the battlefield or at home. The next morning at Fort Willow began with the crisp sound of boots striking the pavement and officers calling out orders. The sun rose over the base, casting a golden glow on the rows of buildings and training grounds. Captain Nina Roberts arrived early, walking with purpose toward the administrative hall. She had slept well, but her mind was alert, remembering the curiosity and whispers from the day before. As she passed the training grounds, she noticed the group of younger soldiers who had caused the stir. They stood together, clearly trying to appear busy, but their eyes darted nervously toward her. Nina kept walking, her posture upright, her expression calm. She understood the tension. Young soldiers often didn't know how to react to someone with experience like hers. Lieutenant Davis caught up with her near the entrance. "Captain," he said quietly, "I think they want to approach you again. They haven't spoken to anyone else and they are hesitant. Maybe you should hear them out, but carefully." Nina nodded. "I will handle it," she said. Her voice was calm, firm, and reassuring. She had faced tense situations in combat, but dealing with curiosity and respect at her own base required a different approach. She entered the main hall. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating the polished floors and neatly arranged desks. The younger soldiers had gathered near the center, whispering to each other. As Nina approached, they straightened slightly, their nervousness visible. "Captain Roberts," said a young private named Marcus, his voice quivering slightly. We wanted to ask you something. We didn't know who else to approach." Nina stopped and looked at him directly, giving him her full attention. "Go ahead," she said. "Ask your questions." Her tone was calm, but there was an unspoken strength in it. Marcus took a deep breath. "We heard stories about something on your uniform. Something unusual. We don't mean disrespect, but some of us, we are curious." Nina's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing the situation. She had faced countless moments of danger and uncertainty overseas, but this was different. This was about perception, respect, and understanding. She remained composed, her voice steady. "I understand curiosity. It is natural to wonder about someone you respect. But my uniform represents my service, my duty, and my experiences. I do not remove it without a proper reason." A murmur spread through the small group. Some soldiers shifted nervously, realizing that their request might have crossed a line. Others looked disappointed, unable to satisfy their curiosity immediately. One of the recruits, a young woman named Lila, stepped forward. "Captain Roberts, we didn't know how to ask properly," she said. "We just wanted to understand. We respect you and your service, but we heard rumors and we thought maybe seeing it would help us understand your experience." Nina studied her for a moment. Lila's sincerity was clear, and Nina could see the nervous respect in the others as well. She took a slow breath, deciding how to respond. "Understanding does not come from seeing what is hidden," she said. "It comes from listening, learning, and respecting the experiences of others. My experiences are not just visible on my uniform. They are carried within me in the lessons I have learned and the choices I have made." The group looked at her silently. Marcus seemed unsure how to respond, but Lila nodded slowly. "We understand, Captain," she said softly. "We should have approached this differently." Nina smiled faintly. "Curiosity is not wrong, but it must always be paired with respect. That is the first lesson in leadership." She paused and looked at each of them. "You will have many leaders in your career. Learn from each one. Observe, listen, and respect. Those qualities will make you strong soldiers and better people." Despite her words, Nina sensed that some of the curiosity and tension remained. The younger soldiers had heard rumors, and rumors were not easily forgotten. She could see the questions lingering in their eyes. They wanted to know something, but they didn't yet understand that respect was more important than seeing the hidden truth. Before the conversation could continue, Commander Mitchell entered the hall. His presence immediately changed the atmosphere. Known for his sharp eyes and even judgment, he walked with a calm authority that made soldiers stand at attention without a word. "Captain Roberts," he said, addressing Nina first, "I have heard about the situation here. I would like to understand firsthand." Nina nodded respectfully. "Commander Mitchell, the recruits approached me with questions about something on my uniform. They requested that I remove it to see for themselves. I declined, explaining the importance of respect and discretion." The commander's eyes scanned the group of younger soldiers. They stood silently, aware of his presence and authority. He then looked directly at Nina. "I would like to see what has caused such curiosity," he said. Nina's heart skipped a beat, but she maintained her calm. She trusted the commander and knew his intentions were fair. She nodded slowly. "Yes, Commander." She raised her sleeve slightly, revealing a small portion of her left arm. The commander leaned in to inspect. His eyes widened slightly as he saw the detailed design partially visible under her sleeve. Even the younger soldiers gasped softly, their curiosity transforming into awe. Nina rolled her sleeve carefully, revealing a phoenix rising from flames. The colors were bold and the lines intricate. The tattoo symbolized courage, survival, and rebirth, qualities that had defined her life and career. Commander Mitchell studied it carefully, his expression thoughtful. "This is remarkable," he said finally, "a symbol of resilience and strength. It tells a story that medals cannot express. It is clear why these soldiers were curious, but more importantly, it demonstrates your personal courage." The younger soldiers looked at each other, their embarrassment evident. They had demanded something they now realized should not have been forced. Marcus stepped forward, his voice low but sincere. "Captain Roberts, we apologize. We didn't understand. This is incredible. We respect you even more now." Lila nodded, adding, "Yes, Captain. Thank you for showing us, and thank you for teaching us about respect and courage." Nina smiled warmly. "Respect is earned, not demanded," she said. "Curiosity must be balanced with understanding. Remember this lesson well. It will serve you far beyond this base." Commander Mitchell addressed the group as well. "Observe and learn," he said firmly. "Captain Roberts has shown you the value of integrity and resilience. That is the foundation of leadership and courage. Let this be an example for all of you." As the group dispersed, Nina felt a sense of relief. The tension had shifted into admiration, and the recruits began to understand the deeper meaning behind her service. The phoenix tattoo was more than an image on her arm. It was a story, a reminder of battles fought and lessons learned. Later in the day, Nina returned to her office to continue her duties. Reports, personnel files, and planning for upcoming training exercises filled her schedule. Despite the busy work, she reflected on the morning's events. Leadership was not only about action on the battlefield. It was about guiding others, teaching lessons, and setting an example. The incident with the recruits had reinforced this truth in a vivid and personal way. Lieutenant Davis entered her office mid-afternoon. "Captain," he said, "I spoke with the recruits. They are inspired by your actions today. They understand respect and courage in a way they did not before. You have made a lasting impact." Nina nodded. "It is not about me," she said quietly. "It is about teaching them to see the value in discipline, courage, and integrity. That is what will make them good soldiers and good people." Davis smiled, impressed by her insight. "You always find a way to turn a challenge into a lesson," he said. As evening approached, Nina walked through the base once more. Soldiers were finishing drills, equipment was being stored, and the hum of activity filled the air. She noticed the group of younger recruits again. This time their posture was different. They carried themselves with newfound respect, heads held high, their eyes no longer filled with curiosity alone, but with admiration and understanding. One of them, Marcus, approached her cautiously. "Captain Roberts," he said, "we wanted to thank you again. You showed us what it truly means to serve with honor. We will remember this day." Nina smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder briefly. "Remember, courage is not just about what you face outside. It is also about the strength within. That is what matters most." As she returned to her quarters, she felt a sense of fulfillment. The base had shifted slightly that day. Curiosity had been replaced by respect, and admiration had grown where uncertainty had once lingered. That night, as Nina looked out over the base from her balcony, she reflected on the lessons learned. Leadership, she knew, was about more than orders and medals. It was about guiding, teaching, and inspiring. The morning's events had reminded her of the power of integrity and courage, and she felt proud of the impact she had made on the next generation of soldiers. Stars filled the sky, and the base was quiet except for the occasional sound of footsteps or distant laughter. Nina stood there for a moment, feeling the calm of the night settle around her. She knew that challenges would come, curiosity would arise again, and lessons would need to be taught. But she was ready. She had the experience, the courage, and the wisdom to face whatever came next. The following morning at Fort Willow began with the usual routine of drills and formations, but the air carried a subtle tension that Nina could feel. Even after the incident with the younger soldiers, whispers had spread quietly through the base. Not all soldiers had seen the tattoo, but rumors traveled quickly, and now many wondered what exactly Captain Nina Roberts had revealed. As Nina walked across the training grounds, she noticed more soldiers glancing her way than usual. Their expressions were a mixture of curiosity and admiration, but some carried hesitation. She understood that human nature often mixed respect with the desire to understand what was mysterious. She maintained her composure, walking with the same upright posture, her black boots striking the ground firmly. Lieutenant Davis fell into step beside her. "Captain," he said quietly, "I think some of the officers are becoming concerned. They've heard rumors and want to make sure nothing gets out of control. They respect you, but people like to speculate." Nina nodded. "I expected as much," she said. "Curiosity can grow into suspicion if it is not addressed. We need to handle this carefully." Their steps echoed against the concrete as they moved toward the main administration hall. Soldiers standing in line for inspection straightened as Nina passed, saluting out of habit, respect, and perhaps a bit of awe. The commander's office loomed at the far end of the hall, and Nina knew that Commander Mitchell would want a full report on the situation soon. Inside the hall, the younger soldiers who had caused the stir before were gathered again, though this time at a distance. They looked nervous, whispering quietly among themselves. They were not disobedient or defiant. They simply did not know how to act when confronted with someone as experienced and respected as Nina. Marcus, still clearly uncomfortable, approached her cautiously. "Captain Roberts," he said, some of the recruits, they are worried. They are not sure what to think about the tattoo. They respect you, but some think it may be unusual. They don't know the story behind it, and they are confused." Nina stopped and looked at him directly. Her calm eyes met his, steady and reassuring. "Curiosity without understanding can turn into suspicion," she said. "That is why I emphasized the importance of respect yesterday. The tattoo is personal. It represents lessons, courage, and resilience. It does not change who I am or my service." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes, Captain. We understand, but some are still hesitant. They are afraid of saying the wrong thing." Nina smiled faintly. "That is natural. The unknown can create fear, but respect and understanding must guide your actions. That is what leadership is about." Before the conversation could continue, Commander Mitchell entered the hall. His presence immediately drew attention. Soldiers straightened instinctively and whispers ceased. He walked with his usual calm authority, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Nina. "Captain Roberts," he said, his voice firm yet measured, "I understand there has been some confusion and curiosity regarding your return and the events yesterday." "I would like a full explanation." Nina nodded respectfully. "Commander, the younger recruits approached me yesterday with questions about my service and my uniform. They requested that I remove part of my uniform to see something they had heard about. I declined, explaining the importance of respect and discretion. I also revealed the tattoo to you privately when you asked to inspect it, as a symbol of personal courage and resilience." The commander's eyes narrowed slightly as he scanned the group of recruits. "I see," he said thoughtfully. "There is some misunderstanding among the soldiers then. Some are curious, some are hesitant, and others are unsure how to respond. That is understandable. Curiosity is natural, but we must ensure it does not lead to disrespect or disorder." He paused, then added, "Captain Roberts, I would like you to share your experience with me in detail. I need to understand the story behind the tattoo and the impact it may have on the soldiers." Nina nodded and followed the commander to a private office where they could speak without interruptions. She carefully removed her jacket and rolled up her sleeve fully, revealing the phoenix tattoo. The intricate design seemed to glow in the soft light of the office. Commander Mitchell studied it carefully. His eyes traced the lines and colors of the phoenix rising from flames. "This is extraordinary," he said. "It is not just a tattoo. It is a symbol of endurance, courage, and transformation. It represents personal battles and resilience." Nina nodded. "Yes, Commander. The phoenix represents what I have faced in my life and career. It reminds me that strength is not just physical. It is in perseverance, learning from challenges and rising after difficulties. I wanted it to be personal, something to remind me of what matters." The commander's expression softened. "I understand. This explains why the recruits were curious, but it also shows why they should respect it. The tattoo carries meaning beyond the surface. You have demonstrated courage not only in service but in how you carry yourself," Nina explained further. She told the commander about missions where she had faced danger, moments when she had been injured or exhausted, and the times when she had had to rely on inner strength to protect her team. She described the challenges of leadership, how decisions affected lives, and how resilience was necessary to succeed. Commander Mitchell listened carefully, occasionally nodding. "This is remarkable," he said. "You have served with distinction, and this tattoo is a testament to your journey. The soldiers will need to learn that true courage is not just in medals or visible achievements. It is in the lessons we carry and the values we uphold." Nina smiled. "That is exactly what I wanted to convey, Commander. Respect comes from understanding, and admiration comes from recognizing the full story, not just the surface." After their private conversation, the commander returned to the main hall with Nina. He addressed the group of younger recruits and other soldiers who had gathered out of curiosity. "Soldiers of Fort Willow," he said. "Yesterday, Captain Roberts demonstrated integrity, courage, and the values we hold as a base. Some of you were curious about her tattoo. That curiosity is natural, but respect is essential. What you have seen is more than a symbol. It is a story of resilience, leadership, and courage. Let this guide your actions and your understanding of what true service means." The soldiers listened attentively. Marcus stepped forward, clearly moved by the commander's words. "Yes, Commander," he said, "we understand. Captain Roberts has shown us what it truly means to serve with integrity and courage. We respect her and her experience." Lila nodded, adding, "Captain Roberts, thank you for teaching us this lesson. We understand now that respect and understanding are more important than simply satisfying curiosity." Nina smiled warmly. "Remember these lessons well," she said. "They will guide you throughout your career. True courage and strength are not just seen on the surface. They are in the decisions you make, the respect you show, and the resilience you carry within yourself." Despite the resolution, Nina sensed that some soldiers remained quietly curious. They did not ask directly, but their eyes lingered on the tattoo and on her uniform. She knew that curiosity was part of human nature, and that over time, respect would deepen as they learned more from her example. Later in the day, Nina walked through the base, observing training exercises and speaking with officers. Soldiers approached her with questions about leadership, resilience, and teamwork. She answered patiently, sharing experiences that demonstrated courage and the lessons learned in challenging situations. Each conversation strengthened the bond between her and the soldiers, turning curiosity into admiration and respect. In the afternoon, a new group of recruits arrived at the base. They had heard stories of Captain Roberts' service and her return. As they were guided through the training grounds, they paused when they saw her. Whispers spread quickly, and eyes were filled with curiosity and wonder. Nina greeted them politely, shaking hands and offering words of encouragement. Her calm demeanor and authoritative presence impressed them immediately. Lieutenant Davis joined her once more. "Captain," he said, "your example is already inspiring the new recruits. They have heard about the tattoo, and while curiosity remains, respect has grown tremendously." Nina nodded. "That is what matters," she said. "Respect, understanding, and courage. Those are the values we must carry forward." As evening approached, Nina returned to her quarters. The base was quieter now, with soldiers finishing their exercises and preparing for the night. She stood on the balcony looking over the grounds and reflecting on the day's events. The curiosity, suspicion, and eventual understanding had created an important lesson for everyone at Fort Willow. Stars began to appear in the sky, and the base was bathed in the soft light of twilight. Nina thought about the impact of her presence, her actions, and the lessons she had shared. Leadership, she knew, was not just about orders or rank. It was about guiding others, teaching through example, and showing the value of courage and respect. Commander Mitchell joined her on the balcony quietly. "Captain," he said, "you have handled this situation with wisdom and patience. The soldiers will remember your actions for a long time. You have shown them that true strength is both visible and hidden, in actions and in values." The morning at Fort Willow began with a quiet intensity. Soldiers moved through their routines with a heightened sense of awareness. News of Captain Nina Roberts' return, her experiences, and the Phoenix tattoo had traveled quickly across the base. The atmosphere was no longer tense, but curiosity lingered. Everyone wanted to understand more about the veteran who had inspired so many. Nina walked briskly through the main training ground, observing recruits practicing drills and formations. She noted their precision, their discipline, and the subtle nervous glances some still gave her. Even though the previous incidents had been addressed, the story of the tattoo had created a quiet fascination. Lieutenant Davis joined her near the observation deck. "Captain," he said softly, "the recruits are talking again." Not in a disrespectful way this time. They want to understand your experiences more deeply. Some even wish to know the meaning behind your tattoo. Should we arrange a briefing? Nina considered this carefully. A briefing may help, but it must be done with respect, she said. We will speak to them about courage, resilience, and leadership. The tattoo itself is a symbol, but the lesson is in the story it represents. By mid-morning, a group of recruits had gathered in the hall, curious but respectful. They stood in formation, their eyes focused on Nina. Marcus and Lila were among them, their expressions serious yet eager. The commander, Commander Mitchell, also arrived to oversee the session. His presence commanded respect, and the soldiers straightened as he nodded at Nina to begin. Today, Nina began, her voice calm but authoritative. I want to share something important. You have seen my uniform, and some of you have seen my tattoo. You have asked questions and shown curiosity. That is natural. But what I want you to understand is not just what you see, but why it exists and what it represents. She rolled up her sleeve fully, revealing the phoenix tattoo in detail. The intricate design of flames rising into the shape of a bird was bold and vivid. The soldiers looked closely, noticing the care and artistry in every line. This phoenix, Nina continued, represents courage, resilience, and the ability to rise after challenges. Each of us faces battles in life, some visible, some invisible. The tattoo is a reminder to myself that even after the hardest struggles, we can rise again. It is a personal story, but it is also a lesson for all of you. A quiet murmur went through the group. Some soldiers nodded slowly, absorbing her words. Others stared, trying to imagine the experiences behind such a symbol. Marcus stepped forward, his voice respectful but curious. Captain Roberts, he asked, have you faced moments when you felt you could not continue? Was that when the tattoo became meaningful? Nina looked at him with steady eyes. Yes, Marcus. There were moments during my missions when the challenges seemed overwhelming. I saw danger, loss, and uncertainty, but I also learned that resilience is not about avoiding difficulties. It is about facing them, learning from them, and moving forward stronger. This tattoo is my reminder to keep rising no matter how hard the battle. Lila raised her hand slightly. Captain, does it also represent hope? For people who feel they cannot overcome their challenges? Nina smiled. Exactly, Lila. Courage is not just for soldiers on a battlefield. It is for everyone who faces challenges in life. We must inspire each other, support each other, and remember that strength comes from within. The phoenix is a symbol of that hope. Commander Mitchell stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Captain Roberts, your explanation adds depth to what we have observed. Many soldiers focus on appearances, uniforms, and medals, but what you have shown today is the importance of inner strength and personal values. The tattoo is a powerful lesson, but your words and actions give it meaning. This is the true value of leadership. The recruits listened intently, their curiosity transforming into admiration. They asked more questions, not about the tattoo itself, but about the lessons it represented. Nina spoke about resilience, leadership, teamwork, and courage. She shared stories of missions where decisions were critical, of times when the odds seemed impossible, and of moments when perseverance made all the difference. Hours passed, yet the soldiers remained engaged. They took notes, asked thoughtful questions, and discussed among themselves. The session became more than a lesson about a tattoo. It became a discussion about values, character, and the meaning of service. After the briefing, Nina walked with Marcus and Lila through the training grounds. You both have shown maturity and respect, she said. Remember what you learned today. Leadership is not about enforcing authority. It is about guiding, inspiring, and protecting those who follow you. Marcus nodded. We understand, Captain. We will remember your words. They mean more than anything we could have seen. Lila added, it is amazing how something small like a tattoo can teach so much. We understand that courage and respect matter more than appearances. Nina smiled. Yes, symbols remind us of lessons, but the real meaning comes from how we act. Always remember that. Later that afternoon, the base commander called Nina to his office. The moment she entered, she noticed his thoughtful expression. Captain, he said, the impact of your briefing is already visible. Soldiers are inspired and motivated, but there is one matter I want to address. Some officers noticed a symbol within your tattoo that may not be immediately visible to everyone. I would like to understand its significance. Nina nodded slowly. Commander, you are referring to the hidden design within the flames, the small emblem that represents those who have supported me. It is personal, but it reminds me that no one succeeds alone. Every soldier, every mentor, every friend who guided me contributed to my resilience. The phoenix is a personal symbol, but that hidden emblem honors everyone who helped me rise. The commander leaned back, impressed. I see, that adds even more depth. It shows humility, gratitude, and the understanding that courage is not solitary. That lesson will resonate with soldiers for years to come. Meanwhile, the younger soldiers continued to observe Nina with respect and curiosity. They had learned not just about the tattoo, but about the meaning behind symbols, the value of resilience, and the importance of inner strength. The fascination was no longer superficial. It had become a true appreciation for leadership, character, and courage. As evening approached, Nina walked through the base, observing soldiers practicing drills and cleaning equipment. She noticed subtle changes. Soldiers held themselves with more confidence, approached their tasks with more discipline, and treated one another with renewed respect. The lesson of courage and resilience was spreading quietly but powerfully. Lieutenant Davis joined her once more. Captain, your briefing and presence today have inspired everyone, he said. Even the officers are speaking about the deeper meaning of the tattoo. It has created a sense of unity and motivation across the base. Nina nodded. That was the goal, she said. Symbols are powerful, but the lessons they carry are stronger. When soldiers understand the meaning behind actions and symbols, they grow not just as soldiers but as people. Later that night, as Nina stood on the balcony of her quarters, she reflected on the events of the day. The curiosity, the questions, and the admiration had created a new understanding among the soldiers. They had learned that courage and resilience were not just words, they were actions, decisions, and the way one carried oneself even in challenging times. The phoenix tattoo glimmered faintly in the soft moonlight. It was no longer a hidden mystery, but a story shared with those who respected the lessons it represented. It reminded her that leadership required patience, understanding, and the courage to share one's experiences to inspire others. Commander Mitchell joined her quietly. Captain Roberts, he said, the soldiers will remember today. The lesson of the phoenix and the hidden emblem is powerful. It demonstrates courage, humility, and leadership. You have made a lasting impression on Fort Willow. Nina smiled. Thank you, Commander. It is not about recognition. It is about teaching lessons that endure and showing that true strength comes from resilience, respect, and the support of others. The commander nodded. Indeed, Fort Willow is fortunate to have you back. Your presence strengthens both the operations and the values we hold dear. The lesson of the phoenix will guide these soldiers for years. As night settled over the base, Nina looked out over Fort Willow, the lights of buildings casting a soft glow on the grounds. Soldiers moved quietly through their routines, reflecting on the lessons they had learned. The story of the tattoo, the phoenix, and the hidden emblem had transformed curiosity into understanding and admiration. Nina knew that challenges would continue, curiosity would arise again, and lessons would need to be reinforced. But she was ready. She had the experience, wisdom, and resilience to face whatever came next, and she knew the soldiers she inspired would carry these lessons forward in their own actions. The phoenix tattoo on her arm glimmered under the moonlight, a symbol of courage, resilience, and the power of leadership. Captain Nina Roberts had faced countless challenges, but she had transformed an object of curiosity into a lesson of respect and inspiration that would last long after she returned to the field. The morning at Fort Willow began with a quiet energy that felt different from usual. Soldiers moved through their routines with purpose, but there was a sense of anticipation. Word of Captain Nina Roberts' lessons, her tattoo, and the meaning behind it had traveled through the base. Curiosity had transformed into admiration, and respect was now visible in the way soldiers carried themselves. Nina walked through the training grounds, observing recruits practicing drills. Their movements were precise, their focus sharper, and their eyes occasionally flicked toward her with reverence. She noticed Marcus and Lila leading small groups of younger recruits. They spoke confidently, repeating the lessons of courage, resilience, and respect that Nina had taught them. It was a subtle but powerful ripple effect, showing her influence extending beyond the immediate briefing sessions. Lieutenant Davis fell in step beside her. "Captain," he said quietly, Your lessons yesterday and today have created a noticeable change. Even the senior officers have remarked on how disciplined and respectful the recruits have become. You have transformed curiosity into understanding. Nina nodded, her expression calm. It is not about recognition, she said. It is about teaching lessons that matter. When soldiers understand courage and respect, it becomes part of their actions and decisions. That is true leadership. As they reached the main hall, Commander Mitchell emerged from his office. He greeted Nina with a firm nod and motioned for her to follow him to a meeting room. Captain Roberts, he said, I want to discuss the impact of your presence and your lessons. The base is responding positively, but there is more to consider. Some soldiers have expressed a desire to document your experiences and the story behind the tattoo. They see it as a source of inspiration and motivation. Nina raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Document my experiences? How do you mean, Commander? The commander explained. A few of our senior instructors and record keepers want to create a detailed account of your missions, the challenges you faced, and the meaning behind the Phoenix tattoo. It would serve as an educational resource for new recruits and a source of inspiration for the entire base. Your story could guide them in leadership, courage, and resilience. Nina considered this carefully. She had always focused on action rather than recognition, but she understood the value of sharing lessons. I am willing, she said, as long as it highlights the importance of resilience, teamwork, and integrity. It should not focus on me alone, but on the lessons that can help others grow. Commander Mitchell smiled. Exactly. That is why we need your cooperation. The story will serve as a guide, showing that courage is not just about medals or visible achievements, but about inner strength and respect. Meanwhile, across the base, the younger soldiers were assembling for another training session. Marcus and Lila had prepared a small demonstration of the lessons they had learned from Captain Roberts. Soldiers watched as they explained leadership techniques, the importance of teamwork, and methods to remain resilient under pressure. Their confidence had grown, reflecting the guidance they had received from Nina. During the demonstration, Marcus paused and spoke directly to the group. Yesterday, we learned from Captain Roberts that courage is not only about facing danger. It is also about making the right decisions, respecting others, and staying resilient when challenges arise. We understand that strength comes from within, and we want to honor those lessons in every action we take, Lila added. We also learned that symbols like the tattoo Captain Roberts has carry meaning beyond appearance. They remind us of values, perseverance, and the importance of teamwork. We hope that by sharing these lessons, we can inspire each other to become better soldiers and better people. The soldiers listened intently, clearly impacted by the message. They asked questions, discussed strategies, and reflected on how the lessons could guide their behavior. The ripple effect of Nina's guidance was becoming more evident with every passing hour. Later in the day, Nina was called to the base's assembly hall, where a gathering of all soldiers had been organized. Commander Mitchell addressed the crowd first, emphasizing the importance of respect, courage, and learning from experienced veterans. Then he invited Captain Roberts to speak. Nina stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. Soldiers of Fort Willow, she began. I have shared lessons about courage, resilience, and leadership because I believe these qualities are the foundation of service. You have seen my uniform and the tattoo, but what truly matters is the action, the decisions, and the respect you carry with you. The phoenix symbolizes rising after challenges, but the real lesson is in how you respond to those challenges. Her words were met with quiet reflection. Soldiers of all ranks absorbed her message, realizing that courage and respect were not just concepts. They were qualities that could shape their lives and actions. After the speech, Nina walked among the soldiers, speaking with small groups, answering questions and offering guidance. Marcus and Lila followed her, demonstrating what they had learned. It was a teaching moment, but it also reinforced the bonds between the soldiers and their leaders. As the day progressed, the impact of her guidance became clearer. Soldiers approached her to express gratitude, share their reflections, and seek advice. Some spoke about personal challenges and how her words had inspired them to face difficulties with courage. Others discussed teamwork, leadership, and the importance of integrity in every decision. Commander Mitchell observed quietly from a distance, pleased with the results. The base was no longer just a place of drills and routines. It had become a space of learning, growth, and inspiration. Captain Nina Roberts' presence had transformed it, leaving a lasting impact on the culture and morale of Fort Willow. By evening, the training grounds were quiet, and the sun began to set. Nina walked to her quarters, reflecting on the events of the day. Curiosity had evolved into understanding, respect, and admiration. The lessons of the Phoenix tattoo had been fully realized, not as a symbol alone but as a source of guidance and inspiration. Lieutenant Davis met her on the balcony. "Captain," he said, "I think the base has changed because of you. Soldiers are more disciplined, respectful, and motivated. They understand that courage comes from within, and that true strength is in resilience and integrity." Nina smiled, her gaze resting on the glowing lights of the base. "That is what matters," she said. "Lessons are only valuable if they are applied. Soldiers must carry them in action, not just in thought. I am proud of the way they have embraced these values." As night fell, the base was calm but alive with a quiet energy. Soldiers moved through the grounds with renewed focus, carrying the lessons they had learned into every task. The story of the Phoenix tattoo, its hidden emblem, and the lessons it represented would remain with them for years, shaping their actions and guiding their growth. Commander Mitchell returned to the balcony, standing beside Nina. "Captain Roberts," he said, "your presence and guidance have strengthened this base in ways that will last far beyond your time here. The lessons of courage, resilience, and respect will be carried forward by every soldier who witnessed them." Nina nodded. "Thank you, Commander. My goal was never recognition. It was to share what I have learned so that others can benefit. Leadership is about guiding others, teaching lessons, and inspiring action. That is the true measure of service," the commander smiled. "Indeed, Fort Willow is fortunate to have you. You have shown that true strength is both visible and hidden, in actions and in values. The story of the tattoo and the lessons it carries will inspire soldiers for generations." Later that night, Nina reflected on the journey that had brought her back to Fort Willow. She remembered the challenges she had faced in her career, the moments of doubt, the missions that tested her courage, and the decisions that shaped her path. The Phoenix tattoo was more than a symbol. It was a reminder of resilience, courage, and the support she had received from those around her. The younger soldiers who had once been curious and hesitant were now confident, respectful, and motivated. They had learned that leadership was not just about rank or appearance. It was about guiding others, teaching through example, and showing the value of inner strength. As she looked out over the base, Nina felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The lesson of the Phoenix had been shared, understood, and embraced. The base had transformed into a place of inspiration, where courage, resilience, and respect were visible not only in symbols, but in the actions of every soldier. The Phoenix tattoo glimmered faintly under the moonlight, a symbol of rising after challenges, of personal courage, and of the strength that comes from understanding, respect, and leadership. Captain Nina Roberts had faced countless battles, both visible and hidden, and she had emerged not only as a veteran but as a teacher, guide, and inspiration for all who served at Fort Willow. The next morning, as the sun rose over the base, Nina walked through the training grounds one final time before heading to the administration hall. Soldiers paused to salute her, their eyes filled with admiration. Marcus and Lila led small groups of recruits, repeating the lessons they had learned and encouraging their peers. Nina stopped to watch them, a sense of pride washing over her. She had returned to Fort Willow not just to resume her duties, but to share the lessons she had